collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Coming up this week, the Cyprus International Short Film Festival.
It's going to be quite interesting. The festival is going to start on the exterior of Rialto this year. We are going to have a show which involves 3D projection mapping on the actual building.
We meet the daughter of the only Governor of Cyprus who's buried on the island.
Just before the beginning of World War II, in 1939, we came back to Cyprus when he was appointed governor and moved into the very lovely government house, now the Presidential Palace.
The Cyprus Association of Cancer Patients and Friends annual fundraiser.
We provide the choice for people to stay at home once their initial therapies have been completed in hospitals, clinics, etc.
And we'll hear about a new transparency and whistleblowing hotline.
In the public service legislation, it does state that if you come across corruption, you need to disclose it, otherwise you will be considered accessory after the fact.
Saturday sees the start of the International Short Film Festival, and with me on the programme today I have one of the artistic directors, Alexia Reuter. Alexia, this is something now that's been going on for how many years?
Well, this is our 4th edition this year as an international festival, and we're very happy about it, that the festival not only keeps going, but it's growing.
And what have you got lined up this year?
Like every year, we have our main thing, which is the national and the international competition. We have 3 parallel programs with different thematics. We have a very interesting workshop, and we have a very interesting opening day for the festival.
Yeah, you're going to do something with the Rialto Theatre, I think. Tell me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite interesting. The festival is going to start on the exterior of Rialto this year. We are going to have a show which involves 3D projection mapping on the actual building. So everybody who is going to be coming on Saturday is going to be witnessing a very, very interesting and creative show.
Tell me a bit more about the workshop. Who's that aimed at?
Well, the workshop is aimed at all filmmakers who are interested in the short film as an independent art form. And the workshop will be presented by one of the jury members this year. His name is Dan Mugia. He's coming from Israel. He's a very renowned director, academic, film critic, and he's also been the head of the Israeli film department for many years. And he's going to have a workshop to discuss the film aesthetics of short film in itself.
When we say short film, actually what do we mean?
We mean any story that can be told in less than 40 minutes or 25 minutes. It varies from festival to festival. They have different rules and regulations. We accept short films that are no longer than 25 minutes. But there are festivals who accept short films up to 40 or even up to 60 minutes. So there is a general term that says anything up to 60 is a short and anything above 60 is a feature.
But 25 minutes is quite a criterion to tell a story.
Of course, I mean, we get great stories. We get great films that end up winning major awards internationally that are 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And that's a challenge on its own. And it's quite difficult, actually. It's not as easy as it sounds. A lot of people think, oh, you're making a short because you cannot make a feature because it's too expensive. But making a good short film is quite difficult and challenging. And you need to have a certain kind of expertise and talent to be able to be very,
concise,
effective and concise within that time frame and time limit.
And how long does the festival run for? Where can people find out more?
Well, people can find out more on our Facebook page, the International Short Film Festival of Cyprus, and of course on our website, which is www.isffc.com.cy. The festival will be running from the 11th to the 17th of October, every night at Rialto at 8:30 at night, and all the screenings and all the events are free.
A great opportunity to catch up with some brilliant short films. That's the International Short Film Festival of Cyprus. Check their website. You can also find details on the website of the Rialto Theatre. Alexia Roida, thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Listen online to the Cyprus News Digest on YouTube or at cyprusmail.libsyn.com. The latest program is uploaded every Friday, and if you missed one, you can catch up there.
Well, we're going to take a look back now into Cypriot history. With me on the Cyprus News Digest this week is Jane Darcy. She's the daughter of Sir William Dennis Battersill, who was Governor of Cyprus, first appointed in 1939. Jane, you spent some of your childhood here, first I think in a house you loved and then at Government House. Do tell us about your childhood in Cyprus.
Well, I came to Cyprus first in 1937, and we moved into what was then called the Colonial Secretary's Lodge, which was a very, very lovely house, and we were there for nearly 2 years before my father was transferred to Palestine, as it was called in those days. After that, just before the beginning of World War II, in 1939, we came back to Cyprus when he was appointed governor and moved into the very lovely Government House, now the Presidential Palace. And we also lived up in Troodos in the summer in the government cottage there.
You, I think, and your father fell in love with Cyprus because he came back to live here after he retired, didn't he?
That's right, yes. He came back, he always wanted to come back, came back, lived in a house in Kyrenia for a while, which is now the Colony Hotel, and then moved out to Karakami, where he built his own little house, which is still there, enlarged now by the present owner.
And he died here too,
yes,
didn't he? He's buried here. He is, I think, the only former governor of Cyprus to be buried here.
I think that's correct, yes. He's buried in the Old English Cemetery in Kyrenia.
Now, you came over, I know, for the opening of the Centre for Visual Arts and Research, and I think you've been responsible for donating quite a few items of historic interest to Rita Severus and the Severus collection.
Well, I have, yes. I don't think there are very many things, but Rita seems very happy with them, and I was more than delighted to be able to just give them, because there's no point in keeping them in Australia. They're better off here in her outstanding museum.
And your memories of Cyprus as a child, I suppose, have perhaps that rose tint that we often think of as happy children. But you've been back since, and you're back here now. What are your thoughts about the way things have gone since you were here?
Well, it's difficult to say, really, because the last time I lived in Cyprus was in '62. When I was here with my husband and 2 children, and we then moved to East Africa. Then we moved to live in Australia permanently, and I've come here on holidays, and it's really always a sort of nostalgia bit that I go in for. Of course, things have changed a lot. Buildings have gone up. There are lots of big roads, which I find very, very confusing. But the general feeling of Cyprus, if you get off the beaten track and away from the tourists, is still very much like it was when I first came here, especially up in the hills, in the villages.
And your father did, I think, put down an autobiography, although it hasn't been published. What were his thoughts about his time as governor of Cyprus?
Oh, I think they were many and varied. Probably the best thing to do is to have a quick look at the chapters which I photocopied and gave to Rita for the CVAR. And that's all written down there, and I must say I don't remember much about it now because I haven't reread them for many years.
But it is, again, a historic document and an insight, I suppose, into the way the Colonial Office worked and indeed the British administration here worked.
Yes, I suppose it was. He didn't go into an awful lot of detail, especially not into sort of controversial matters, but it's a general sort of what he wrote as how he enjoyed going out to the villages and meeting the people, and I think also the hopes that he had for what he wanted to do for Cyprus, which never came to fruition because of the Second World War. All those sort of ideas of improvements and things put on hold until after the war.
Jane, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Welcome back to Cyprus, and hopefully, perhaps on your next visit, we might talk again when some of these things have been published. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the fourth series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
The Cyprus Association of Cancer Patients and Friends, PASICAF, has its annual fundraiser ongoing at the moment. Together Through Life is the title, and from PASICAF we're joined on the programme by Dora Konstantinidis, who's in charge of awareness. I think probably your job is easier now than possibly somebody 20 or 30 years ago working for PASICAF, because we do now all, at least I think, know about cancer and about a lot of the things that concern both patients and their carers. But the money that you're raising in your annual fundraiser goes where exactly?
The bulk of it definitely goes to the services which are aimed at making life easier for cancer patients and their families, which is the psychological support service and the home nursing care service, which has a group of professionals, nurses, psychologists, physiotherapists and doctors, all ready to attend to whatever needs the patient or the carers may have.
While they're in their own home?
While they're in their own home, yes. We provide the choice for people to stay at home once their initial therapies have been completed in hospitals, the clinics, etc.
So we're not necessarily talking only about palliative care for people in the end stages, we're also talking about on-call services for people who are perhaps in remission.
Exactly, and in many cases we may have people who have been just had a surgery, so before they're rehabilitated, they can be at home and receive the services either of the physiotherapist to prevent lymphedemas after a breast surgery, or the psychological support from a psychologist, psychotherapist, so they can have the strength to go back into society, to go back to work and proceed getting better and being operational again.
Which is something that a few years ago in Cyprus cancer patients didn't even consider, did they? I mean, how much has this changed? People used to be frightened of even mentioning the word cancer.
That's right. I remember back in 1996 when I had my experience with bowel cancer, and I used to say I've been through this experience, and people would cringe in some cases. So we have gone a long way. A lot of the work has been done by the people who founded this association and other NGOs starting from 1986 by a group of people who went through the experience with the aim of, first of all, minimizing the taboo that existed around the word cancer, like you very well mentioned. So today, people can refer to us, to the association, and either ask for help or ask to become volunteers, ask to fundraise for us, which is something fantastic, because this means that people have realized the work that is being done, and they're ready to offer back in whichever the way they can. So €2, and this is the motto of our campaign that we have established the last 3-4 years. With €2, everybody helps Pasikav continue offering services to people who need them. And our services do not stay only with the home care service and the psychological support, but also with the transport services. We have our buses, which bring people from other towns to the oncology center in Nicosia and the general hospital. So that's a great relief for relatives as well as patients, because they can travel amongst people who
are going through the same thing.
The same experience. They can talk things through in a more relaxed way and return back home.
How much does this cost on an annual basis?
Well, the association works on a budget of over 2 billion. The target of this fundraising campaign is to raise 500,000, 500,000. And with this, we'll be able to offer services back to the people, cancer patients and their families, and at the same time we'll be able to continue with our awareness campaigns. Because now, another thing that we do know about cancer is that 30% of the cases can be prevented. So healthy choices, healthy lifestyle, not smoking, not drinking to excess, getting vaccinated for specific viruses like hepatitis or HPV, for the HPV virus, getting diagnosed regularly. For example, women having their pap tests, men for their prostate. So all this is continuous work so that knowledge goes back to the public to have this knowledge to protect themselves.
All right, very quickly then, what's going on during the fundraising effort? Where can people find out more?
Well, first of all, there will be the street collections. It's already started from the 8th of October until the 12th. People can find us on traffic lights, but they can also call at our offices if it's convenient. They can make donations at our offices in all towns. And there is also the contribution that they can do through SMS messages. So there is a choice of ways. So they can send a message of support on their SMS, either for €1, €3 or €5. And this will be running through to the press. And thank you very much for the opportunity that you give us to pass on these messages.
That's my pleasure. I presume all the details are on a website somewhere?
Yes, and on the Facebook. And there are a lot of events taking place. Some of them have been done. And I would like to mention last Sunday, a fantastic event at Acropolis Park, where there was a fiesta. It was very festive. Children, adults playing, having their souvlaki. So at the same time, have fun, collect money, and put it back into the community in this multiplied way.
So people should look then, if they're on Google, for Pasykaf, that's PasyKAF, or the Cyprus Association of Cancer Patients and Friends. Dora Konstantinidis, thanks very much for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
You can subscribe to the Cyprus News Digest on iTunes for free and get the program downloaded to your phone or tablet so you can listen anytime, anywhere.
The Cyprus branch of Transparency International, that's an NGO that is dedicated to the fight against corruption, has launched an anti-corruption hotline here in Cyprus. The chairman of their board is Maria Kapardi. She joins us now. Maria, thanks very much indeed. And do tell us how this hotline is going to work.
Okay, good afternoon. Yes, and by the way, it's not only a hotline. We do receive complaints or allegations either through email or fax. So this particular line is in existence in another countries. It has been in operation since 2003 in in other countries. And the way it works, people provide us with information on particular allegations on corruption, and I stress that it only relates to corruption, and corruption is the abuse of power for personal gain. It may not be one's personal gain as such. It could be their relatives, their friends, so it could be nepotism. So I do stress we only hear cases of corruption because we have been receiving many other complaints as well. So we do record them in a particular template that has been provided to us by the European Union, and so as to identify all the information we need. Depending on the information and depending on who is involved, as in which department is involved. Then,
when you get this information, Maria, let's take an example. Suppose I've been to, presumably this is for governmental departments mostly, I've been somewhere and I've perhaps been asked to pay a bribe to get something done. If I call your hotline, I say what? That this person in this department asked me for so much to do such and such. What do you do with that information? How safe am I from repercussions?
Okay. Now, there are two issues. You can either choose not to tell us, not to provide your personal ID, so in which case it is thoroughly anonymous. However, we do ask that we are given a contact so we can come back to the person and ask for more information should we need it. So as it is stated in our leaflets and in our website, we do ask people to set up another email address that can be used just for that purpose, so we can communicate with them if we need additional information. We will not, under no circumstances, will we disclose the identity of the person that has provided this information to us.
And how do you follow it up?
Okay, it depends on which department it relates to. We have come into contact with the Auditor General. The Auditor General has appointed one particular individual who will be our go-between. So we will be providing those cases, and then they will be taking it further. There is a particular procedure that we need to comply with following the EU guidelines.
Right, and the other thing that, of course, I mean, it's all very well protecting me. How can you be sure that somebody with what I think here in Cyprus you call a paravono, with a colleague, doesn't create a situation in order maliciously to implicate somebody when, in fact, they're not doing anything?
Yeah, because it could be just a personal grudge. It could be because someone didn't get a promotion, or they just envy somebody. Yes, that's why we need to record all the information. That's why we need to complete a particular template. So we don't just take an allegation per se without taking all the information that we've been asked. So as our lawyers can identify whether that is a true case or is just an allegation that doesn't exist.
All right, and are you in a position to perhaps send somebody else to the relevant department to do a similar transaction, let's say, and see whether they too are asked? I mean, who does this checking up? You say the Auditor General, but they can only perhaps check up what's been said, and presumably for this to stand up, let's say, in court, if criminal proceedings are to follow, you need evidence.
That's correct. I cannot really disclose all the procedures we are allowed to follow. The board is not involved at all in any of the cases, so we've asked the individuals that have not to inform us on any particular cases, so the cases, just in case the cases fall out in court. As I've mentioned, this is an EU-funded project. It's been carried out for many years in many other countries. In addition to this, we are now working on whistleblowing protection legislation. We have on our website a questionnaire, and we ask people if they have experienced incidences where they either blew the whistle or they had information and they wanted to blow the whistle, but they didn't because they were either bullied or afraid. To, again, anonymously complete the questionnaire, we're trying to collect as much information as possible as to what kind of repercussions or whether these people would blow the whistle again to enable us to be in a better position to develop a draft, a bill, so we can provide to the authorities, because we do realize that if people are going to come forward, they need to be protected, and we need to make sure we provide them with this avenue.
If members of the public, in the case that I gave you, supposed case, that's one thing. Now, of course, if you're a whistleblower within a government organisation, how much support have you got from the government on this? Because the way things have worked here for all these years, I imagine that means you won't get promoted ever again.
In the public service legislation, it does state that if you come across corruption, you need to disclose it, otherwise you will be considered accessory after the fact. So we need to communicate this to the public servants, that it is their duty to disclose it, such act, otherwise they will be held responsible.
Why do you need to disclose it? Surely that should be something, if it's sort of enshrined in law here, that they would have been told when they joined the service.
Exactly, but people forget. So it is important that we remind them of this obligation that
All
they
right,
have.
and let's remind, if we may, Maria, the general public and anybody listening, if they do have information which they feel should be passed on to Transparency International, how they can do that. You mentioned a website. Can you give us the URL and indeed the number of the hotline?
Of course, we can give you the number of the hotline, which is 700-700-11. So it's 700-700-11. They can send us a fax on 25 375 655. That's a fax number, 25 375 655. They can send us an email on apetodiafania, that's apetodiafania@transparencycyprus.org.
And I presume that email and all that information is on your website.
Exactly. We have another platform which is called Apetodiafania. I demand transparency. So if they go into that, they will find all the necessary information. All the relevant information as to what to do, what kind. There's also a quiz that they can complete. It can guide them as to whether an incident is corruption or not. Because I think it's no secret, on the first day that we've opened last Thursday, we had 50 telephone calls just on one day, and some cases were not corruption.
Okay, so people do need to be clear what they're calling about. And since you opened October the 2nd, so it's had a few days now, that initial blast on the first day, how's it going since then?
Well, I did forget to mention that the hotline is only open on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 6 o'clock. We have 3 people answering the lines. I wish we had 10, let's just say. The line is very busy, but there is no hurry. I mean, people are in a hurry to tell us. They can wait, so they can take their time, or some people have made an appointment with the lawyers to go in and visit us. Our offices are in Limassol.
Otherwise, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 in the morning until 6 p.m. If my memory serves me correctly, you said 700-700-11.
Exactly.
Thank you very much indeed, Maria Caparini,
Thank
for
you.
joining
All
me.
the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.